Welcome to the Beck program. Well, this administration knows how to celebrate our troops and honor our Constitution. The War Powers Resolution. This is the law that is supposed to keep the president's power in check. It's a 60-day deadline. He can send our troops out someplace, but he has to get congressional approval for military action within 60 days. That was 11 days ago. The administration didn't even really acknowledge the passing of the deadline, even though in the New York Times they said they were trying to figure out a way around it. Wow. He also promised that we would never put boots on the ground in Libya. But there are now reports out this weekend that, you guessed it, there are Western troops on the ground in Libya. This is in direct violation of the UN resolution prohibiting foreign occupation forces in Libya. Where is anyone on this? Where is Congress? Are we going down the road where the president just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until he is bigger than the system itself? What else will he ignore? What other powers does he have or does he want? Congressman Brad Sherman, a Democrat from California, called out Obama for treating Congress, quote, as irrelevant. And he said it is time to stop shredding the U.S. Constitution in a presumed effort to bring democracy and constitutional rule of law to Libya. I have news for you, gang. It was hard enough to try to do it in Afghanistan and Iraq. It ain't going to happen in Libya. Not in the current atmosphere in the Middle East. The administration's only defense so far has been to say that they believe that they're in compliance without explaining how they're in compliance. The only defense from the left so far is, well, yes, but other presidents have done it as well. Oh, well, then that's okay. My mother told me something about people jumping off a bridge at one point. Would you jump off a bridge if everybody else was? Congress, listen. Listen to the few who are speaking out and stand up. It's Memorial Day weekend. How about we make sure that our military is not sent out with murky missions and they are doing legitimate things, and we don't put boots on the ground in yet another country. Now, that report may be off base. I have to tell you this report because it did come from the administration's favorite new news source. They're the ones that the president wishes we were more like, Al Jazeera. So that report has to be credible, right? Hello, America. With the incredible access we have to information today, it is stunning to me that the president's power and his power grabs are going essentially unchallenged now, especially from those on the left who I thought hated all power grabs and all presidential powers and all wars. I mean, this is the anti-war president who joined with the anti-war left, talking about all the reasons that we couldn't go into war in Iraq, and now we're attacking Libya. Dare I ask this president, what is our mission in Libya? And when does it end? What does success there look like? America, I believe we are being led into a very nasty, nasty situation. How is it that Congress is just shrugging their shoulders? How is it that most of our country is as well? I believe our country is asleep. It's tuned out and it is unplugged. And the Memorial Day weekend is only the beginning of a very dangerous time, because it's usually when no one is looking that trouble begins. And I contend we are now approaching the most dangerous 120 days, perhaps since the Cuban Missile Crisis. When the world is on edge, remember where you heard that. It's important. Tonight, I'm going to present a video to you, tape from radicals, in their own words. And it's a plan that we laid out on this program in February. You will not see this tape most likely on any other network, probably not most other shows. And if they do give it to you, they won't give it to you with the analysis that we will. You have to ask yourself why. It verifies everything that we said a few months back that I wrote on this board right in front of me. Stand by. I'll show you that videotape here in a second. But first, before we do that, I have to ask you this question. Let me give you a scenario. This is your neighborhood. And your neighbor's house is on fire, as are all of the other. They're catching flames. All the other houses are all starting to burn down. Your house is not burning down yet. But you, that's you here, you have two neighbors. One neighbor is saying, your house is fine, don't worry about it, just go back in, no big deal. And your other neighbor is saying, I think we should get some water. I think we should. Okay, maybe it doesn't burn up, but maybe it does. Which one do you listen to? Especially if you find out that this neighbor and his friends have been saying they want to totally transform your neighborhood into something else. It works to their advantage. If your house burns down, will you still listen to this man? No, you wouldn't. You would never listen. You would get water. So why isn't America getting water? Why isn't America being urged to get water? Why isn't America leading the world in saying, get water? We seem to be flicking matches. I want you to ask yourself this question over the next couple of weeks. Who is preparing you for what is ahead? Who is preparing you for what is ahead? And who is preparing you for just another election? Are you going to be listening to the dolts who covered the Arab Spring like it was New Year's Eve coverage in Times Square? And why are you listening to them? You should be listening to somebody who's telling you to prepare for anything, to get your financial and your spiritual and everything, get your house in order, rather than somebody who is saying, everything's fine. Disregard, especially if you know the track record. If you don't know the track record of this program at this point, why are you watching this show? It is seemingly every day we do something that I say to somebody on the floor, I don't know how this show is ever successful. We break every rule in television. Nobody in the history of television that I know of, especially cable, has ever done full-hour monologues. I was told when I first got into television to not speak directly to you for more than 34 seconds. Why 34 seconds? Apparently, that's the limit of the American attention span. I didn't believe that when I was over at the other network. We got up to 7-minute monologues over there. We're now doing 60-minute monologues every night. We break every rule. Yet there is a relatively steady 2 million people that watch this show each and every night. Why? Because they watch it, and they watch the record of this program, and they are engaged. People just like you. People just like you. Those 2 million people, I believe, will affect the world in a positive way. And that chance could happen in the next 120 days, where people will freak out and not know which way to go, and someone will tether it to sanity in your neighborhood. You will not be shocked. You will be prepared, and you will help others. I want you to share some actual video tonight that I'm going to show you here with your friends. Because remember, I was called a conspiracy theorist because of this board. And I said, and I asked my staff today when I saw this video, I said, do you remember at the beginning of February when I said all these things, and I said in my office, I will fall on this sword. This I know to be true. And if I'm wrong, drum me out. I asked for it to be written here on this board, so you had a reminder, so you knew exactly what we said. Nobody could take it out of context or forget. It was a pretty brave thing because everyone said this was crazy. Watch this video here in a second. On February 7th, I said this on this program. And here's the premise. The radical Islamists, the communists, the socialists, they will work together against Israel. They will work together against capitalism. And they will work together to overturn stability. Now, here's the problem with this. When I said this on this program, that they would overturn Israel, no one was talking about anti-Israeli kind of rhetoric. It wasn't even in the news. Overturn capitalism? You're just on this socialist McCarthy hunt, Mr. Beck. And overturn stability? Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. They're not going to unite. They're not going to work together. And they certainly don't have anything in common. I remember being told that the Sunnis and Shias, what could they possibly unite on? Well, I wanted to show you that video clip from February 7th, because I want to show you another video clip that we just got in that is also from February. It is a prominent longtime socialist leaders conference that held this little gathering together in February. One speaker has authored multiple books on revolution and was on the ground in Egypt during the uprising. A socialist on the ground. Now here he is speaking 2 weeks after the uprisings and 19 days after I said on the air what I just showed you. I want you to listen to this 25-year-old Syrian activist who spoke at this socialist conference. Listen carefully to what he says.
Internationalism is the key word. We should remember the student movement in UK also pushed other students all over Europe to organize and to resist and to be in the streets. And as I said before, what is happening in the Arab region is against a global system. This is why everyone has to back it up, because we are putting an end and threatening the capitalist system as a whole.
Okay. That's the real enemy, not Mubarak or the dictators. That is the first enemy. But they are putting an end to the capitalist system. The capitalist system, the Western way of life. Not what the media will tell you what is going on in the Middle East, or the president, or apparently the CIA. But this is what is truly happening in the Middle East. This is just another phase of what we have been fighting since September 11th. Remember, it was Bill Ayers who on September 11th, I believe, or 9th, was on the cover of the New York Times Magazine standing on the flag. Not a lot has changed. It was 2 days after September 11th that Van Jones was in San Francisco, spouting and standing with people that spout this kind of nonsense, that the capitalist system as a whole needs to be destroyed. Remember that. The enemy is the capitalist system as a whole. He goes on to say this.
Be very clear, we have to push for this revolution. The threat is not from the Muslim Brotherhood. The threat is from these regimes that are backed by Western imperialism. We're not against, in the struggle, we coalesce with Muslim Brotherhoods, with different political groups, more conservative, because we have a common objective. It was the fall of the regime, the fall of Ben Ali, Mubarak, and others. And we work together, we work separately, but we hit together. This is normal. But as soon as our political interest will be different, we will criticize them.
Okay, listen to that. This is almost word for word what we have been saying on this program. Again, I want you to go to glennbeck.com and see the whole video of all of this. He's amazing, and he's not alone. There are 3 other people that are speaking at this conference. Reminder, it is a socialist conference, and they are talking about working together with different groups, specifically Islamic radicals, got it? Separately, but together. I said that they would do that, and they didn't have the same goal. That was the Bill Kristols of the world saying, what do they possibly have in common? The destruction of the Western way of life is what they have in common. And as soon as their political interests are different, all bets are off. This isn't rocket science. It's opportunistic groups that will latch on to each other and each other's movements that they don't necessarily agree with if it will help them get closer to their goal. It's called real life. And right now, many different groups, to achieve their goals, want an end to the capitalist system and the Western way of life, and they are working together. And what's the easiest way to get the Arab world to side with socialists? Well, this one is a tough one, because they have nothing in common except this. Watch.
You have slogans, we will unite the Arab world, we will liberate Palestine. And this we heard on Tahrir and in Egyptian streets. We don't want any more of this Egyptian collaboration with the Israel state. Listen, When we resist together against a common enemy like Israel, we have to join our forces in the resistance. But when Hezbollah is doing neoliberal policies with the help of different political groups, I criticize them.
Okay. The common enemy is Israel. Now, where have you heard that before? Where? Let me show you what my theory is, and I stand by it. Just everybody on the left, this is my theory, and I stand by every word of it. Groups from the hardcore socialist and communist left and extreme Islam will work together because of the common enemy of Israel and the Jews. So here it is, confirmation. Now what are we going to do with this information? The ends justify the means. These socialists actually believe, and this is where it gets tough, they actually believe that they're going to be able to team up and work with radical Islam and then stop them in the end from taking over the entire globe or wiping out Israel, which I don't know how. They actually believe they'll win in the end. Good luck with that one.
What is happening is not only good for the region, it's good for the whole world, because it's threatening the capitalist system, it's threatening the global system as we know it, and it's going to liberate the Arab world, but it might liberate the whole world. And every liberation of people in this region is a step forward for the liberation of Palestine, because this is also one of the main objectives of this revolution. Even though it's a slogan, it's repeated. When we had in Cairo last week, people chanting, 3 million people chanting, we will go, and the revolution will go until the liberation of Palestine.
Okay, go until the liberation of Palestine. Palestine, in Cairo. I thought it was all about the evil Mubarak and how the youth just loved Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. It's 1776 all over again. They want the Western way of life. Why are they trying to threaten it? Because it's not and never has been about freedom, at least on the organized level. And you can see this now on how it's being framed. We should have seen it coming. I should have noticed this before as evidence. It's the liberation of Palestine. When we saw this, I asked our staff to go back and look, because we're glazing over the push Israel into the sea part. But if the news anchors would pull out, the Tahrir confetti away from their eyes and looked a little closer, they would notice something that I didn't even notice until today. Look, the Palestinian flag in Tahrir Square. If they would have looked a little closer in Greece, they might have noticed this. Oh, the Palestinian flag in Greece as well. If you would have looked a little closer even at Scotland, there it is, the Palestinian flag in Scotland. How about that? It's almost like radicals everywhere are uniting against the common enemy of Israel and the United States. But more importantly, if you listen to what he said, it's not enough to unite against something. You have to be for something. UBL was against the West and Israel and capitalism, but he didn't make it. This new group of radicals, which has the same goal, is against the same thing. But more importantly, they have figured out the key to the Western heart. It's the plight of the oppressed. This time, the plight of the Palestinians. So they will scoop up the useful idiots, the college kids, and they will use every single image they possibly can and mirror Gandhi or MLK, because the plight of the oppressed wins. It's a Madison Avenue trick. They have re-imaged themselves, not as killers and terrorists, with a complicit press. The Islamic extremists now are re-imaging themselves as Martin Luther King. But let me show you two pictures side by side. These men are not the same. This is the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, and his dream is to kill the Jews. These two men are also not the same. This is Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and his dream is to kill the Jews. Let me show you another one. This photo is from the Civil Rights March in Tennessee, and the other is the Gaza Flotilla. These are not the same movements. The followers of Dr. Martin Luther King never screamed or chanted, "Kill the Jew." They never screamed, "Remember Calabar." They never took pipes out and guns and beat people to death while screaming, "Kill the Jew." Those who marched with Martin Luther King were instructed specifically to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. Again, this is not rocket scientist. It doesn't take a genius to say which way the guns are beginning to be aimed. Not only are they not coming with guns a-blazing, we know now what their strategy will be. We saw it last year with the flotilla. We saw it this year in Nakba Day. They will flood the borders, and they will force Israel to defend itself and provoke them to act out, and then snap as many pictures as they can of the injured, and the world will react. I know this will happen, as much as I knew in February what would happen then. We now have verification and video that this is true. We can't wait this time for the video of the things I am telling you that are coming to be true. We must link our arms together in our own communities and be a force for good and not for evil. We're going to take you back to something that we talked about almost a year ago on this program, but it all ties into what you're seeing now in Israel and the Middle East. All of the anti-Israel movement, which is being masked now as pro-Palestinian to cobble together the largest coalition possible, is being orchestrated by the radical left and radical Islamists. They all believe that the free market and capitalism, that's us, America, the West, and Israel, are oppressing the entire world. I have mentioned the Freedom Flotilla, which, by the way, the Turkish Islamic activists who are members of the IHH organization and who were all aboard the flotilla last year, you remember, with the pipes, they were also at the violent Nakba Day demonstrations that we showed you a couple of weeks ago. They're going to be on this flotilla as well. The flotilla is being put together with the help of Code Pink and also these two, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. I think these two smoke too much dope, and they're still living the 1960s. But, believe it or not, they are way ahead, gang. They are the founders of the Weather Underground, a domestic terrorist organization. I'm going to show you some audio here and video of Bernadine Dorn. This is new video, and it was run on RT, Russia Today. It is a government arm, propaganda in our own country. Why have you not seen this video yet? Watch.
The fact that we are radicals today, the fact that we, think that the real terrorist is the American government, state terrorism unleashed against the world.
There's new video. I'm sorry, that's not it. There's new video that we will post at glennbeck.com that is from Russia Today from last week, where she is very, very clear. And a Russian journalist asking her all kinds of questions in English. And it's all about the oppression. I don't know about you, but I get all warm and fuzzy inside listening to her. And people like her. And she is influencing the Arab Spring, which, by the way, just got $40 billion from the G8 last week. Now, I don't know how they divvy that up exactly, but guess what? Your tax dollars are part of the G8. So you're funding this glorious Arab Spring that, remember, is only about freedom and definitely not fundamental transformation of the globe or the destruction of Israel or America. They hate America. It is the oppressor. How do I know? The Weather Underground. We showed you this manifesto about a year ago. And it's all about convincing people that they are oppressed by someone. And then they get all those oppressed people to unite. Let me play Bernadine Dorn again here.
White youth must choose sides now. We must either fight on the side of the oppressed or be on the side of the oppressor. Got it?
Let me give you two things out of this. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. This is from 1969. See if this sounds familiar. The contradiction between the revolutionary peoples and the imperialist headed by the United States is the principal contradiction in the contemporary world. The development of this contradiction is promoting the struggle of the people of the whole world against U.S. imperialism and its lackeys. Also goes on to say, the strategy which flows in this manifesto, which I contend a year ago is the blueprint of what's happening in the world. The strategy which flows from this is what Che called creating 2, 3, and many Vietnams. To mobilize the struggle so sharply in so many places that the imperialist cannot possibly deal with it all. Since it is essential to their interests, they will try to deal with it all and will be defeated and destroyed in the process. Does Libya make a little more sense? This is what is happening now. And it is the Palestinians are again being used and being imaged, and we are the oppressors. If we allow this to happen, if we allow the world community to buy this garbage, that somehow Israel is the evil oppressor, the tiny little country ruining the entire Middle East, not the Syrians who are gunning down their own protesters, not the Iranians who are slaughtering and stoning homosexuals to death, not the Saudis who women cannot drive. It's an abomination. No, it somehow or another is Israel. If we sit silently and allow the world to fall for this nonsense, we lose not only any foothold for the Western way of life in the Middle East, but the Western way of life itself. You embolden those radicals. It is the end of the Western way of life if your neighbors don't wake up. It is the ancient battle of good versus evil, the ancient battle of kill the Jew. And silence in the face of evil itself is evil. The question is, will you stand, and will your neighbors be awake enough to stand as well?
Tomorrow, exposing evil, the history of the Muslim Brotherhood's Nazi roots. Information you won't see anywhere else. 5 p.m.
Over the next few days, I'm going to ask you to DVR this program and share it with a friend, at least one. Because the goal I stated to my staff here last week is to show you the face of evil like no one else will on television. And it has been going on for years. Look evil in the face.
سنحرره من دنس الصهاينة هؤلاء.
أنا السود إن شاء الله اللي هخوف اليهود وأقول لهم أكل إن شاء الله رب العالمين، صح ولا لا؟
بإذنه تعالى
إن شاء الله.
صهيون في الأرض طاغي وضار، ودام الإرهاب المغتصب دياري وأرضي، فلا لي خيار سوى الانتفاضة لتحريرها.
محمود چرا هیچی چایی چیزی نمیاره؟ برو من هواتو دارم پشتتم، برو بس برو راست ببین کوچه بعدی خودش میری وسط برج.
Imagine if anything like that was on video from the United States, teaching our young to hate Muslims. How would that be received by the rest of the world? How would that be received by your neighbors? So why is it being received differently coming from the Arab world? And how do you fight it? Well, the first step is E2 in the E4 project. Education is E2. Educate yourself. I've been trying to do that in the last few months because I've seen what is coming. And a few weeks ago I went to Israel, and I went to a place for the second time in my life. It's an amazing place. It's called Yad Vashem. It is dedicated to remembering the 6 million innocent Jews who died there during the Holocaust. But there's something else that is there that is truly remarkable. And this time I went, this is what stuck out to me. It is the trees that have been planted to honor the righteous among the nations. This is an incredible book about it, The Righteous Among the Nations. The righteous among the nations are people who risk their lives to help keep Jews alive and safe during the Holocaust. It's the only organization in the world that does this. Heroes. Heroes, average citizens from all over the world that are now heroes. These heroes are the reason why Christine Kieran is still alive today. After her family went into hiding in an underground Polish sewer, a Catholic sewer worker found them. He didn't turn them in. Instead, he risked his own life to help them survive. This man would bring Karen's family food. He'd wash their clothes for them. They were dirty. The clothes were covered in lice. He spent 14 months doing this. This little girl spent 14 months underground in a sewer. The whole time she wore a green sweater. It was knitted for her by her grandmother. It's now in a museum. At 8, she wore this sweater. Later this week, I'm going to introduce you to the woman who wore this sweater for 14 months in a Polish sewer. Don't miss our show on Thursday. She'll be here along with others who lived a similar life and were saved by ordinary people. In today's world, with the technology that we have, millions could die in the blink of an eye. We have to strive to be the righteous among nations. I've said for a while that you should keep pictures of people that you admire around you. Keep them in your office, people that you want to be like. I have several pictures in my office of people I admire. I have Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German pastor who was executed for exposing the Nazis as killers. He's just one of them. It serves as a daily reminder of someone who stood, someone who wasn't going to sit back and let evil win. In the coming days, I want to show you the faces of people not only that I admire and want to emulate, but people I believe you should too. People that you will see yourself in. People like the Polish Catholic priest. Find a piece of yourself in the people we will show you in the coming days. And I ask you to commit to be the person you were meant to be, not who you've allowed yourself to become, to find your purpose, to find your strength, to restore your courage, and become the righteous among nations. Good news for you. Tonight, according to Reuters, quote, the United Nations warned on Wednesday of a possible crisis of confidence in and even a, quoting, collapse of the U.S. dollar, of its value against other currencies as it continues to decline. In a mid-year review of the world economy, the UN Economic Division said such a development stemming from the falling value of foreign dollar holdings would imperil the global financial system. Imperil the global financial system? What kind of horrible fear-mongering conspiracies are they trying to peddle over there at Reuters? Look, let me be clear. As President Obama has said in the past, he has pulled the economy back from the brink of disaster that he inherited. He passed all of the financial regulation to ensure something like this would never, ever happen again. So why? Why in the whole world would Reuters try to spin this so ugly? Do they just hate the president because he's black? Or is it that he has a funny name? Maybe it's because he wasn't born in one of the contiguous states like all the other nicely homogenized presidents. We should get the race police over at NBC on this right away. Speaking of financial chaos, Europe is on fire. What? What kind of crazy conspiracy is this one? Well, I tell you what. While the rest of the world plays political games and gets you ready for the 2012 election, and they start talking about this glorious Arab Spring, we've already discovered what the Arab Spring is all about. So next, let me tell you about the European summer that's about to happen. Well, I think after the lovely Arab Spring that we've all enjoyed, where democratic showers have brought about military ruling flowers, we've all been looking forward to that beautiful European summer. But the heat isn't caused by the sun. No, it's caused by the riots and the Molotov cocktails. But reports say, and I'm quoting, that there is a relative calm after police injured more than 100 protesters in Barcelona on Friday. Oh, a relative calm. Off-duty police officers told the Daily Beast that he and his colleagues were angry at the cops for resorting to violence, adding that after the recent cuts to police salaries and pensions, it should be them in the square protesting. Barcelona is not alone, chanted thousands in Madrid on this last Friday night. "These are our weapons," shouted the protesters, holding up long-stemmed flowers. Since May 15th, protesters of all ages and background have flocked to the squares with a, quote, "mixture of ideologies," but overall feel unrepresented and used by politicians. Gee. Used by politicians and not represented by them. And do we have any of those seeds being planted here in America? Especially with a mixture of ideologies. That's interesting. Kind of like, what do you think? Communist and socialist and maybe some radical Islamists just thrown in there for good measure? Sure, sure. And in Athens, Greece, for days, tens of thousands have been protesting against the government's austerity measures. Huge crowds have been assembling in front of the Greek parliament. They were booing, whistling, and chanting, "Thieves, thieves," while pointing at government buildings. The Greek protests have been inspired by similar demonstrations in Spain. In fact, groups of Spaniards have even come over to Greece to help and join in their protests as a sign of solidarity, holding up protest signs written in Spanish. If I may, America, excuse me for just a few minutes. Let me make the last few moments of this segment to appeal in a direct message to those in Washington. See these pictures. See them clearly, because the Arab Spring will turn into the European summer, and that will turn into the American fall if sanity isn't restored. Please, those in Washington, stand with the people. Get yourself out of corruption. Root yourself in the principles and the policies that our nation was founded in and on. Stand with the Constitution and stand again with the people. We are, in the end, Americans, and I don't care what anybody says. We may be the last generation of Americans that are unique from the rest of the world, but we still are unique. We don't behave like those in the Arab streets or European streets unless things are so out of control and there is no leadership. Washington, and anyone within the sound of my voice, you must lead clearly and peacefully. Yet you must provide a radically different path. One, dare I say it, rooted in our principles and our Constitution. If you're looking for a revolutionary, may I suggest less Che and more Sam Adams. We have a few special shows coming over the next few days and weeks. Tomorrow, I'm going to do something that, of course, causes all kinds of controversy. I'm going to show you the roots of the Muslim Brotherhood. Remember, our president tells you that they're fine. I'm going to show you their connections to the Nazi Party of World War II. They are closely aligned. They came together with a common enemy of the Jew. It is history that no one else will show you. You won't learn it anyplace else. Then on Thursday, I want to share with you the heroes of the Holocaust, stories of those who were saved by brave friends and neighbors and strangers, people that did the right thing. We'll be joined by people who withstood unimaginable conditions. Tales. Please watch and gather your family. And then one other thing. We have several details coming out on this event in Jerusalem on 8/24. I need you to get involved, and I need you and your church to reach out to your Jewish friends and your synagogues and your Jewish community centers, and start to work together, to stand together. More details at glennbeck.com/Israel. From New York, good night, America.